grew up in very rural New Jersey. Now, rural New Jersey is probably a conundrum for most people to think about because if you only know New Jersey from the Jersey Shore or the Sopranos. But rest assured, in reality, there's parts of New Jersey that are just as wooded and rural as anywhere in this country. Now, what that meant is that on Halloween night, my sister and I, would get driven to a group of houses. We'd get out, we'd go trick-or-treating between those houses, and then we'd get back in the car, we'd be driven to the next group of houses. Not ideal, and it's probably not what most of you experienced if you were able to walk around a neighborhood on Halloween night and hit all the houses on your own, but we didn't have that option. If we just walked our block, maybe a little bit further, we would probably hit 8 houses. So we got driven, and then we'd walk, and we got driven, and we would walk. Now the good thing about this was, of course, that we were able to hit a lot more houses than we would have been able to otherwise. The bad side is that, it was almost like a chaperoned evening, whereas a lot of people had experiences on Halloween night of relatively a lot more freedom. In 1985, my sister and I got ready for Halloween night the same way as always, and we went trick-or-treating. We were driven in the family's Ford Escort to the first house. We got out, we walked it, we went back, we drove. About a half hour, 40 minutes in, we ended up in front of one of my grandmother's friend's house. Now, years later, we'd find out this family was not actually good people, but we didn't know that at the time, and we certainly were allowed to go in and trick-or-treat. So we walked up to the door, and I pushed the doorbell, and my grandmother's friend came to the door. Now, mind you, we knew these people by reputation. As kids, you sat around a table, you heard stories about people that your mother and grandmother and father and grandfather knew, but we really didn't have any social interaction with these people. And I remember being taken aback, about this stranger who I knew who was, but actually in the flesh, seeing this person, there was a certain creepiness as you can only experience if you're very young when looking at someone who's very old. Or at least at the time I thought was very old. It's funny as you age how that tends to change. Anyway, she reaches into her bucket of candy and pulls out a Three Musketeer bar, which is my sister's absolute favorite candy at that point in her life, and promptly puts it into my bag. I think my sister was hoping that the same would happen for her, but it didn't. Instead, the next thing out of the bag was a pecan roll. Now, a pecan roll, if you're not familiar with it, is just nougat, which is rolled in pecan shards and then packaged. It's really not a bad treat at all, but it's a treat that appeals more to adults than it ever would to kids. And certainly this was the case with my sister. The expression on her face when she saw that pecan roll and realized that that's what she was getting when I got the Three Musketeer bar was both priceless and as horrifying as anything that ever aired on the History Channel. She was appalled, she was horrified, she was even angry. So on the way back to my parents' car, I could tell there was a tension in the air. And that tension maintained throughout the rest of the evening. Now here's the thing, if you have a sibling and you did trick-or-treating, maybe you had a similar experience, and that was this, that after the trick-or-treating was done, you'd empty out your bag of candy on the floor, and then a weird process would happen. You'd take away the candy that was non-negotiable that you wanted to keep, and the rest was sort of on table to be bartered with your sibling. My sister desperately wanted that Three Musketeer bar from me. Wanted it probably more than anything in her life up to that point. And to be honest with you, I didn't have a special love for Three Musketeer bars. I'm completely open to the idea of bartering it. But she wasn't offering any of those candies that I felt were equal in value. It was a full-size candy bar, so already it wasn't going to be like one fun size with one full bar of candy. No, it was going to be a much more equal deal if I was going to make the deal. But she was not offering anything of substance. She was trying to divvy up like packets of Sixlets, and those individual Twizzlers in the plastic, and I was having none of it. I needed to be something substantial. Had she offered me the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups for the Three Musketeer bar, this would have been a done deal, and our family wouldn't have this story as part of our history. But she didn't. She wanted to make the deal she wanted to make, and she wanted that Three Musketeer bar. And I didn't want to give it to her unless I was getting something equal in return. That night didn't end with the deal being brokered. The next day, she tried to revisit the deal and still was not offering anything of substance. By the third day, when she was trying to still get that Three Musketeer bar, I'd hardened. Now I wasn't going to give it to her unless I got a great deal. Now it was going to be on my terms. She never did quite offer up anything worth that Three Musketeer bar. So, say hello to a Dixon family heirloom. This is the Three Musketeer bar from 1985. This is a family relic, an heirloom, a part of our history. And now we laugh a lot about it, but in truth, this was a point of contention for many, many years. There's a lot of things you learn from holidays if you're paying attention. Christmas teaches you not really to trust your parents when they're talking about the supernatural, and St. Patrick's Day teaches you that alcohol is a thing. But Halloween can teach you about basic economics. Yeah, the ghosts and goblins and witches are all important, but the truth is, getting free candy from strangers or people who you know their name, but you really don't know the people, it allows you an opportunity to start learning the worth of something. And that not everyone values everything the same. So that a Three Musketeer bar, now petrified in my hand, could mean the world to a 14-year-old girl, and barely nothing to her younger brother. But the acquisition of it, now that meant something. Something that has, decades later, still brought lots of conversation, lots of jokes. There's not a holiday when the family gets together, I think, when we don't talk about this candy bar. I'm considering having this preserved for all times, maybe in lucite or resin, because this is an essential part of my childhood. Because of this candy bar's history, I believe that I've gotten more enjoyment out of this Three Musketeer bar than I ever could have if it had been opened and eaten. And I think that's true of my sister too, to be honest, because she wouldn't even remember this bar today had I been willing to trade it for a couple packets of Sixlets and an individual self-serve Twizzler.